Hey, what's up, Toilet Water Squad? I'm Big P, and I'm streaming out some high-altitude hoagie rolls. These are great for hoagies, cheesesteaks, or just any sandwich, really. I started making these because there's no good bread out in Denver, but it turns out it is possible to make good bread here, so I don't know why nobody does. Well, Little Arthur's does. But let's get into the P. We're gonna start off by measuring out 694 grams of bread flour. This recipe is gonna make 4 rolls because if I'm going through the trouble of making these rolls, I like to make a few, and you can always freeze ones that you don't want to use yet. And I'm going to provide 2 recipes, one for bigger rolls and one for smaller rolls, but in the video I'm just going to go over the bigger rolls because I think they're better, but the description will have the ingredient amounts for the smaller rolls. It'll be all the same process. After adding the flour, I add 7 grams of active dry yeast. If you only have instant yeast, use 5.4 grams. I haven't tested it with instant yeast, but that should work. Charlie Anderson has a great series on making cheesesteak rolls. I'll link a video in the top right. That was the starting point of making these rolls. I modified it to make them bigger, and 2, make them work better in high altitude. But yeah, if you're not at high altitude, then check out that video. Or if you just want to know more of the science behind things. After the yeast, I added 13.8 grams of diastatic malt powder. This helps with browning, oven spring, and just crumb texture. I'd highly recommend getting some of this and using it, but if you don't have it, you can just either omit it completely, or you could try using 5 grams of sugar. I haven't done that, but you could try it. Then add 6.9 grams of salt and mix everything up. That might seem like a small amount of salt. That's because keeping the salt low will keep the rolls softer. Next, we want to add 436 grams of water, and we want that water to be warm to activate the yeast. So look at your package of yeast to see what temperature water you need, but mine is between 100 and 110 degrees Fahrenheit. I'd highly recommend getting a thermometer if you don't have one, but if you don't have one and you want to do this anyway, it's just lukewarm water. It's just, just a little bit warmer than your body heat. And then mix that in as well. I should have mentioned that if you're unsure if your yeast is alive, like if it's old or something, then mix it with water and just like a teaspoon of sugar and let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes. And if you see like bubbles or foam, then that means that it's alive and good to use. So if you're doing that, then don't add the yeast with all the dry ingredients. Wait until you have this warm water and mix it into the warm water with just a little bit of sugar, and then add it to the dry ingredients once you've confirmed that it's alive. I like to give everything a quick mix then, just to get everything all wet so that it gets wet while it's still warm and starts to activate that yeast. And then I measure out some Crisco. We're adding 69 grams of Crisco. Crisco contains mono and diglycerides, which help create a softer crumb and a thin crust. Add that to the rest of the ingredients and then stir it in until it's all mixed together. At first there'll be a lot of like fat streaking on the sides, but then it'll all come together. And then we're gonna let it rest for about 20 minutes. And you wanna cover it so that it doesn't dry out. I like to just keep it in the stand mixer bowl and just put a plate over the top of it. After 20 minutes, we're going to knead it for about 5 minutes. So I just put it back in my stand mixer. Well, I keep it in my stand mixer, but if you put it in a different bowl, then put it back in your stand mixer and mix it for 5 minutes. Or if you don't have a stand mixer, you can just do this all by hand. Mine's about done now, so this is what it should look like towards the end of the kneading process. And then I just like to flip it over and just put it into a ball. I flip it over just because I'm not really sure if it's just the bottom has just been stuck to the bottom the whole time or what. So I don't know, that might just be a me thing. But then we're going to let it rise till it's about doubled in size. That should take about 30 to 60 minutes. I just cover it with a plate again and keep it in the bowl. You wanna make sure you cover it every time. And in Denver, it's very dry, so I like to use a plate and a bowl instead of just a towel, just because it'll keep more moisture in. After it's doubled in size, you want to degas it. I like to give it a nice little punch, and then form it back into a ball, and then put it back in the bowl and cover it again until it's doubled in size again. Well, it's really not double in size. It's increased by 1.5 to 2 times its size. And this time it'll probably take shorter, so probably like 20 to 40 minutes. Degas it again, and then we're going to take it out of the bowl and separate it into 4 different dough balls. Each dough ball, if you want to weigh them out, I like to weigh them out so that they're all even. They should be around 300 grams. If you don't want to weigh them out, you don't have to. You can just do it by eye. Once I have them split up though, I like to put them into their own individual balls, and then I'll put 2 into like a big Tupperware container. So whatever you have. I mean, I guess, you know, it depends on what kind of containers you have. You could put them in their own individual deli container or whatever. But you just want to make sure they're in a container that's covered, and we're going to put them in the fridge for 48 hours. Or at least that's what I do. I do 48 hours to develop more flavor. But you can do 12 to 48 hours, or you could just bake these right away. Well, if you want to bake them right away, after you divide them, let them rest for like 20 to 30 minutes, and then move on to the shaping step, which will be soonish. You'll get better results if you do the cold fermentation, but if you want to skip that, you'll still make rolls. So these have been in the fridge for 48 hours. You can see that they've increased in size. I tried to degas them, but they're pretty hard and cold. So you just want to squeeze them and degas them that way, and then put them back in their containers at room temperature. I let them warm up for about 2 hours, but somewhere between 1 and 2 hours should be fine. This is after that 2 hours. We're gonna move on to the shaping step. I have some cornmeal. I'm going to sprinkle that on a piece of parchment paper that's big enough to fit 2 rolls. I have the parchment paper on top of a pizza peel to make it easier to move around. If you don't have a pizza peel, you could use like an upside down sheet tray, or you could just carry it around on the parchment paper if you wanted to. I say upside down sheet tray because if it's upside down, the rim or like the walls of the sheet tray won't get in the way when you're trying to slide it off into the oven. I have a plate on the left there that's got sesame seeds on it. I would recommend buying sesame seeds in bulk. I get them at Sprouts, you know, the bulk section. You scoop them into a bag. They're insanely cheaper than if you were to go to the spice aisle and get like a bottle of them. At least where I live, that's the case. You also don't need to use the sesame seeds if you don't want to. I know a lot of people like the sesame seeds, but I know there's also a lot of people that don't like them. So if you don't want to use them, don't use them. All right, so we're gonna bake 2 rolls at a time. So we're gonna take 1 dough ball out, and we're going to put it on the counter and roll it out into a triangle. Rolling it out like this is going to help get rid of any large bubbles that, you know, they're gonna create any big bubbles in our bread. When you get it into the triangle shape, then roll it down from the top, so into like a log, like a hoagie roll, and then you wanna, from the middle, you wanna kind of push out and try to keep it evenly sized, and just roll it out until it's about a foot long. I'm not doing a great job at keeping it evenly sized. You can kind of fix it afterwards, but it's much easier if you just try to keep it evenly sized throughout the whole time than going back and fixing it. When you get done rolling it out, I usually push the sides in a little bit just to keep them kind of like more rounded instead of like pointy at the end. I did it there, but I forget to do it, I think, at the end of this roll. And right now I'm getting a tape measure just to measure to see if it's 12 inches. You don't have to do that. I usually don't do that. I was just doing it this time to make sure that, since I'm telling you to do it as 12 inches, I figured I should make mine as accurate to that as possible for demonstration purposes. Oh, okay, it looks like I did push the ends in at the end on this one. After you're done rolling it out, if you're using sesame seeds, then dip the roll in sesame seeds on just one side. That's gonna be the top side. My plate isn't big enough for that, so I have to do it twice like that. And then I like to take a peek to see if there's any bald spots, and if there are, then I dip it back in on those spots, but if not, then I put them on the cornmeal on the parchment paper. Then just do the same exact thing with your other dough ball. When you have them both on the parchment paper, then cover them with a towel, and we're going to let them rest again and rise for about an hour until they look noticeably puffy. You may have noticed that I dipped the side of the rolls that has the seam into the seeds. I usually don't like to do that. I usually like to dip the other side into the seeds so that the seam would then be on the bottom. This is a different set of rolls, a more recent set, so just so you know that why these might look different. But these look puffier now, and we're going to slice them with just one long slice along the side of each roll with a bread lame. If you don't have one of those, you can use your sharpest knife or use a razor blade. Then you want to spray the rolls with water. This is a spray bottle of water, and I spray it a lot. I try to get the parchment paper wet too, so that that kind of continues to evaporate water and steam while it's baking. Charlie, in his video, he puts an ice cube in the middle, but anytime I did that, it didn't really work that well. It kind of made the rolls like maybe a little too soggy, like it would like melt and then like get wet under the rolls. So try whichever method you want, and if it doesn't work, then try the other method. All right, so I have a baking steel in my oven, and I've had my oven preheating on 480 degrees Fahrenheit since I shaped the rolls. So it's been preheating for about an hour. If you don't have a baking steel, you can put a sheet tray in the oven upside down and just do it the same way. Just preheat it and get it all heated up. And then we're going to slide our rolls onto the tray or steel and cover it with, that's a Detroit style pizza tray. If you don't have that, you can use anything that's shape and heat proof. If you don't have anything like that, you can get one of those disposable foil things from the store, like one of those disposable foil things that you would like roast a turkey in or something like that. And you put that on top, and you might have to put something on top of that to keep the steam trapped in, like maybe like a cast iron pan or something. But make sure to test that to make sure that whatever your tray is can hold whatever you're putting on top of it, so it's not going to collapse. Quick note for any British people, that was 249 degrees Celsius and aluminum foil. Bake the bread covered for 12 minutes and then remove the covering and put it back in the oven for 4 minutes. It's kind of hard to remove the covering, so I use a different pizza peel to help lift it up. Throughout my testing, I was then spraying the rolls again here, but I stopped doing that, and that was good. I started baking it covered longer and then stopped spraying it, and the rolls stopped being as flat. They used to kind of flatten out in the oven. All right, we've removed the covering and we put the rolls back in for 4 minutes. And now it's been 4 minutes, and we're going to rotate the rolls and then put them back in for another 4 minutes. After you shaped the rolls and you're putting them on the parchment paper, be mindful of where you're putting them on the parchment paper so that they're not too close to each other, so that they don't expand into each other, but also so they're not too far from each other, because that you want them to fit under whatever you're putting on top of them. So at this point, sometimes I notice that the inside sides of the rolls are a little lighter than the outside sides. So sometimes I'll try to just move them around a little bit, just to get a little more air between them so there's more space for heat to get in there. Also, I don't always pull the rack out like this. I'm mostly doing that so that you guys can see better, so the camera can see better. But I mean, it was easier to maneuver things around pulling the rack out. So if you need to pull the rack out, do it. But if you don't want to pull the rack out, you don't have to pull the rack out, when you're doing these things. At this point, the rolls are done. I'm taking them out of the oven now. I might experiment with cooking them a little longer to get some more color on the outside. But as of now, I think this is, the recipe is where I want it to be. It's in a good spot. So I think this is good. I have a wire rack out and ready to go to put the rolls on top of, so that they can cool for about an hour. You want these to cool for about an hour until before you cut them, because they're still kind of bacon inside. So you want that process to finish. They're also pretty hot, but I couldn't wait to show you. Well, I wanted to see the bottom to make sure I didn't burn them. So remember, we made 4 dough balls. I took all of them out of the refrigerator at the same time. And right after I finished shaping this batch, I shaped the other batch and put them under a different towel. And I had that on a sheet tray so that I could move it around my kitchen to get it out of the way. It would have probably been better if I had put it on an upside down sheet tray so I could just slide it off. But it's also not really necessary. You can see I can just pick up the parchment paper and carry it around. But that's harder to do when you're trying to get it to slide it off into the oven. It's better if you have an upside down one when you're sliding it into the oven. Now from here, it's the same process. So yeah, just slice them and then bake them covered for 12 minutes. Take the cover off, bake them for 4 minutes, rotate them, then bake them for 4 more minutes. These ones got a little more color. I'm wondering if that's because I wasn't trying to film these ones and I wasn't leaving the oven door open as long. I was kind of doing everything a lot quicker. So yeah, these ones were very nice. And now the first batch has cooled, so I can show you what they look like a little better. These are some nice looking rolls. And then I'll show you the underside of the next batch too, just to show that even though there's more color on the top side of the roll, the bottom side still did not get burned. I made this batch at nighttime, so then the next morning I made a hoagie to take to the lake. So this is that next day. I've made a bunch of hoagies recently testing these rolls, so I didn't have too many meats left, so I had to go to the store and get some more ham, and the store by me sucks, so they just had like this, they just have pre-cut ham, and it was super thick, and yeah, it's not ideal, but it works. This is what the inside of the roll looks like, if you are curious. You probably should be if you're watching this video. So yeah, you can make good bread in Denver, and nobody does for some reason. I'm gonna speed run through a hoagie now, okay? So this is some homemade garlic basil mayo. Then I put some provolone cheese on top of it, then some spinach and onions. I didn't have any tomato left, but that was some oregano, then some Genoa salami, then that's Cooper Sharp American cheese, then some ham, some red wine vinegar, and then some spicy capicola. Then I like to put some more oregano and red wine vinegar on top and some black pepper. Then I cut it in half. Oh, okay, I guess I didn't take this one to the lake. I think that was the previous batch that I did that on. Yeah, I made a bunch of them for a lake day party thing, and that was the previous batch. I don't know when this was, but I know it was good. So here's an example of one of the shorter rolls. The recipe for that will be in the description, but it's the same process. Everything's the same. It's just different, you know, less ingredients. And this is probably about like 8 inches, I would say. Some people are passionate about whether or not a roll should be scooped or not. That just means taking out some bread from the middle so that you can fit more ingredients on the inside. I think it's a good idea to maybe scoop them like this. I'm scooping this roll. And then it's just easier to fit, you know, everything that you want in the sandwich, and then also have a good ratio of bread to meat and fit everything in your mouth in a bite. I should note that this roll and probably any other roll after this were before I changed and fixed the recipe. So this is when the rolls were still coming out a little bit flat and the inside was a little bit weird, but I'm just showing you these videos for hoagie reasons. I'm sure I also mentioned earlier that these are great for cheesesteaks. I'm going to do cheesesteaks in a different video because this video is already too long, but subscribe if you want to see that in the future. This is the good rolls. These are the most recent rolls actually on the cheesesteak. And then these are the flat rolls again for that lake day party thing. You can make any type of sandwich on here though. I'm thinking about making a breakfast sandwich on one tomorrow. If I have time, I'll edit it into this video, but we'll see. It's unlikely. Oh God, I forgot to mention what I changed to make it high altitude. Basically, I lowered the amount of yeast in it because there's less air pressure up here, so you need less for it to rise, and if you have too much, then it will overproof and deflate. And then I also increased the amount of water because water boils at a lower temperature here, so it's going to evaporate quicker. It's also drier up here. This hoagie's from even a different batch of bread, and the sandwich is looking a little sadder. It was still good though. Different lake day too. Very beautiful day. Ta-ta, Toilet Water Squad. See ya.